I do have a question, and we actually had a question in the chat earlier, which is semi-related to what this question pertains to, which is what we thought of the Olympics opening ceremony. But I actually, before we get into, we might want to comment on the opening ceremony in a bit. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask you, because the recent controversy, Diane, has been over, and there's been a lot of misinformation about it as well. So we thought we could clear a few things up. There was what the newspapers were calling a biological male who was fighting in the women's category, and there was a big sort of controversy after he effectively, well, the opponent basically gave up after just a few seconds, less than a minute, fighting. Now, it turns out there's been lots of stuff bandied around on social media, everything from this person was a trans person, a transgender person, all the way to this biological male side of things. And it turns out if you dig a little bit deeper, this is somebody who was raised as a female. This is somebody who has female anatomy, shall we say, on the outside, but has an XY chromosome. It's something that has now been called intersex, which is a genuine medical condition. But we've got here then a person who's been raised as a female, somebody who has female features and female anatomy, but has XY chromosomes. From a purely scientific perspective, and before we get into some of the, or if we even get into any of the politics and comments and the biblical point of view, but just Diane, just can you comment on this issue regarding, or from rather, a biological point of view? Is this person a male? Is it a female? What are we dealing with when it comes to XY chromosomes?
Well, if you have a Y chromosome, you're male. That's the determining factor. There are a couple of extremely rare genetic conditions where people are conceived as male, and they are male, but because of mutations or a particular mutation, their male reproductive organs don't develop because they are insensitive to the male hormones. But you do produce testosterone in other parts of the body. In fact, females even produce testosterone from other glands in their body. So these people are not transgender in that they have not done anything to alter their gender. It's just that at birth, because they didn't have any male external reproductive organs, they were recognized as females and brought up as females. But if you do a chromosome test, they do have a Y chromosome, so they are male. Now, this is a very rare condition. There are a couple of variations on it. And it's to do with a lack of ability to respond to the male hormones in order to develop male reproductive organs. Usually these people are not the ones who are involved in the various political protests that are going on at the moment. But it is an issue with men's and women's sport. But it has been known about for a while, but it's only just become a big issue now that transgender and all of these other gender debates have been going on in the last few years.
It's also interesting, Diane, that the Olympic Committee's excuse was they were female on their passport. They didn't check anything at all like that, even though the bloke looked like a man, had muscles like a man, hit a girl with a power that no woman would ever deliver. Because as one chief boxer here in Australia said last night, it's a fact that any male will on average be 20% stronger than any woman, and you can't deny it.
So one other thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is that this person was banned, or rather was disqualified from an international competition last year for failing to comply with the gender test. In other words, she was disqualified, or he was disqualified because it wasn't able to determine whether they were male or female. So there is a lot of controversy around it. I think we do have something that is a little bit more unusual, a little bit more unique in the sense that we are dealing with this extremely rare condition, I suppose you could call it, of intersex, as opposed to somebody who has consciously chosen to undergo a gender change, a sex change. We're not dealing with a transgender person in the way that we would understand it today, in the sense of undergoing transition or anything like that, but we are still having to challenge with this detail of, okay, what is biologically and biblically the definition of male and female? So we have our biological definition then, XY, right? If somebody has a Y chromosome, they're male. What's a biblical take on this then? Perhaps John, if you wanted to comment.
Well, yes, I did, as I think I've said sometimes, a deliberate course in genetics to discover something about my own family, because we have pyloric stenosis in our family. I was born with it, and the doctor said I'd never grow up to be a big man. I'd hate to see what I was like if I was born normal. But in reality, it really has affected my family, quite a few deaths down through the years due to pyloric stenosis. For those of you who don't understand the words, you are born with a part of your stomach that won't open, and so you end up vomiting all of mum's milk back out very explosively, usually. And I was a test baby because they tried a new drug on me, which apparently worked, praise the Lord. After about 18 months, I could swallow normally. But when I checked out with the original doctors, why didn't they use this drug anymore? They said I proved it was too dangerous. So I'm an experimental result, but benefited from it and grew into quite a strapping young lad. At 14, I was 6'3.5". So when you have a look at that, the thing that got me interested in doing genetics was I wanted to discover what percentage of my children or what chance they really stood of it, because it tends to be sex related. Mainly the boys are born with pyloric stenosis, and it affects them. So I had to investigate XX, XY, XXY, Y only, XXX, and you'll find that every time you get away from the standard XX or XY, it steps down a ring. These are not alternative sexes, they are degenerate effects. They always have a negative effect, including the XXY. And I think, Glenn, you'll be interested in knowing, because the USA wouldn't allow gender to be listed on the birth certificate, correct?
Yes, more and more doctors are going to not listen to the sex on your birth certificate.
Yeah.
Something
of
that's
course,
being promoted.
With this guy who's been brought up as a girl, the Olympic Committee again failed, because, strip your pants off, tell us what your genes are, show us. And as you said, Joseph, he's failed a test like that just a year ago. So I think it's the Olympic Committee's fault, and I pity that poor female boxer who quit in the first 40 seconds and say, I've never been hit so hard. This is unfair. And it really is unfair. So, yeah, that's the only comment I've got.